a reaction to Friday night's performance?
Yeah, we're hugely disappointed with the scoreline, first and foremost, and aspects of the performance. And I suppose the inability to convert in the first 8-10 minutes when we had a couple of gilt-edge opportunities, and then deal with setbacks thereafter. So we didn't get the ball back until the 33rd minute. With control, we had 4 or 5 opportunities, but we turned the ball over, primarily from the line-out. So it's one of those situations where you recognise that it could have been a different picture, but you don't come out and talk about that afterwards, because 52-7 speaks for itself.
What did you come out and talk about afterwards?
Actually, the boys themselves, their reaction afterwards in the changing room, you could see that they cared deeply, and they were particularly gutted by the performance on the scoreline. I think in situations like that, as a coach, it's easy to vent your anger, but for me, all I spoke about was that it clearly hurts, it should hurt. We have 2 days to process what that hurt's about, and we turn up on Monday to do what we do and do it well, so that it doesn't happen again. You can keep looking back at the scoreline, and look, in many respects there are a number of things we could have done better, there's no doubt in that, but you've also got to tip your hat to the depth that Leinster have as a team, and I thought their big name players really stood up and led for them. That's not to deflect from the point that I expected us to be right in the fight when I looked at the 2 teams on paper. That wasn't the case, so it's how we move forward with it. And instead of throwing everybody under the bus, we reflect on maybe why it didn't go our way, and why we weren't mentally right, accurately right in terms of our attack, our defence, our set piece, whatever it was individually, because some individuals played well. If anyone who saw the game, if you watched it diligently, you'll see that there were. I thought Corey Allen continues to perform. Our wingers worked hard. I actually felt a bit sorry for our backs, to be honest, because to be fair, we got manhandled up front.
Was that the lowest point of your time here?
It was a shock, I think. A shock, to, a 52-7, but I'm fairly balanced. The boys see me as, reflective and constant, and you learn not to get overly elated when you have big wins, and equally on the back of that type of game, I think they'll learn more about me now. The shock would be if it's repeated.
And do you think all the players coming back in from such a high with Wales might have a bit of an infectious rub-off on everyone else?
I think that would have happened anyway, because those boys were looking forward to coming home, and they obviously had a fantastic run and fantastic series of wins. But it was good to see their energy on Monday morning. Equally, we addressed the feeling within the squad, the disappointment within the squad on Monday, with a view to moving on to this week and the forthcoming games. And we can go on a run, but we won't talk about game 2. We'll talk about this Friday night.
Was that collectively with everyone back in, or was it just with the team?
Yeah, everyone, and collective unit meetings this morning and a collective session this afternoon. Obviously the international boys didn't train yesterday, but they're starting to. Some of them be involved this week.
Their second team is capable of doing that, though, isn't it?
Yeah, and obviously I know the system quite well over there. Every school is like a professional rugby side. It's got its own gym, it's training 4 or 5 days a week. It's got its own analysis department. The Leinster boys themselves will tell you that young players over there have to take their chance, because if they don't, there are 3 or 4 others ready to step in and grab an opportunity. So you've got, as I say, I was asked afterwards, are you envious of the Leinster pathway? And every coach in the world would say, every rugby club in the world would say they are. It's an obvious question, I think. Ultimately, I'm focused on the Ospreys, and we have a brilliant group of men here. One performance shouldn't tarnish what I think of them as people. having said that, there have been some honest and harsh conversations, and as a result of the performance on Friday night, there'll obviously be some changes.
What's the strategy as to which Wales squad players you reintroduce this week and which you leave for a week or so?
Well, we look at our block of games now, leading up to when a number of the squad will go back for Six Nations duty, and we'll rotate accordingly. So it's as simple as that. We'll manage their minutes on the field so they feel fresh for the games that we're really going after.
So is it going to be some rested in one game, some in the next, or will you rest people in one block?
Yeah, we'll move players around within this system. You know, you look at Keelan Giles, Hanno Dirksen, they've been going really well on the wings for us consistently over the last number of weeks. So there's also an opportunity to rest some of those boys as well, with the likes of Luke Morgan coming back in, who maybe didn't have as many starts with Wales. But having said that, when you're in Welsh camp, you're still committed to the cause, so that has a bearing mentally and physically.
Dan, how's he?
Dan's the injury's not as bad as first indicated or feared. He won't be available this week, but he's close to returning.
Were you happy with the performances of people like Nicky Smith and Aaron Beard in particular? I mean, did that might not have surprised you, but the way they stood up and the way they progressed, it was great for all of us to see.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. It's the best I've seen Nicky scrum. I thought his discipline in there was excellent. I'll not go into the detail of it, but you could see that, and you know, certainly when he was involved, you know, against Australia and South Africa, the Welsh scrum was on top. And Beardy, I thought he grew throughout the series. He took leadership of the line out, which assists Alan Wynne, who's taken leadership of the team. You're sharing part of the load there, and he did a really good job. And equally, I was pleased with his physicality around the field, and you can see that confidence. And I've spoken before about, you know, part of our responsibility as a coaching team here and as a club is we want people playing for Wales. We want people thirsty and hungry to play for Wales. And as a result of that, at all levels, age grade right up to the seniors, and as a result of that, we drive performance within.
I mean, that's the dichotomy, isn't it? You get a result, everyone performs a result like last weekend, but you get some gleaming diamonds shining brightly on an international stage, which is part and parcel of what you need to do.
Yeah, you know, the team that was selected, the majority came from here, and that's very proud for everybody associated with the Ospreys. Of course, it has an impact on what's available to you at the weekend, but you hope over time that you're building that base, the habits, the mentality, the winning culture of those guys are bringing back in with them. That rubs off on our younger player group as well.
And given your front row experience, what have you specifically done with Nicky that's got him virtually the number one job?
It's not just me.
No,
it's a combination of people, but me being us being the Ospreys, I think first and foremost, Nicky's really bought in. He's very coachable. He recognised the importance of being connected to the other 7 players within the scrum and not going off on his own mission, and maybe that's where he was in the past. He's worked a lot on his basics in terms of his profile, his constant tension, getting his angles right, getting his bind right, and you know, the work that everybody's done with him. I think he's a really good example of someone who has come to the fore, and you can see that his rugby's his scrum has improved, but equally his play around the field. You can see what he's like as a defensive player, and he got to carry the ball on a few occasions as well, and he did that with confidence.
Because I think both he and Ricky Evans aren't the biggest lucets in the world, are they?
No.
What they do is they give you other things around the field, but they hold the scrum tight.
Yeah, I thought like Nicky was dominant in the scrum, yeah. You know, along with the other 7 players. It's I do emphasise that it's how we work together as an 8, and I thought he did, you know, held his corner up very well, and in fact was dominant on occasions.
Yeah. He's given what he got his first cap at 20 or whatever. They threw him in very young. They must have seen the potential, but now we're seeing the benefit of that.
Yeah, there's in those days it was raw talent. Now you're seeing more of an artist in there, which is a strange enough analogy for a front row forward. But particularly when you think of Nicky, but he's a pleasure to work with.
Yeah. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in or out from the group that you've got through injury this week?
You want me to give you the team today, do you? I thought I've already answered that.
No, in terms of the players that you've had, is there any knocks from last week or anyone?
No, actually, apologies.
Returning from injury
We've
to availability.
we actually came through the game with a clean bill of health, so maybe that tells you something about where we were physically, or where we weren't. But all in all, we're reasonably healthy at the moment. We've got a few boys returning from the long-term player injury group. We've got Big G, as we call him, Gajon. So he's up and running with us, which is adding to our strength and depth.
And what about the opposition then?
Yeah, they're dangerous. You look at how they play the game. They're not afraid to keep the ball. You look at some of the names on their team sheet with international quality. I think they're a side that if you underestimate them, it's at your own peril. So we've got to be clean about our business. We've got to be motivated and excited to put a performance in on Friday night.
There will be a big expectation for you to put things right down into this.
Yeah, and there always is, to be honest, every week, and that adds to the excitement of Friday night.
Have you got half an eye on the European games and sort of managing selection over the next few weeks then?
Yeah, most definitely. Obviously we've got Stade at home, then Stade away, and we come back from France to play Scarlets at home, into Dragons in Cardiff. So all things being equal, if we've got a healthy squad, those selections have been pre-planned, so boys are fairly comfortable in where they'll be, and some players will be given a little bit of time off as well, so they're refreshed and charged.
It's an exciting month, isn't it?
It's brilliant.
Fantastic.
I'm really looking forward to it, and I'd encourage our supporters to come out, and get behind the boys.
Could be a big opportunity in Europe though, couldn't it? Because Stade very variable in Europe, aren't they?
Yeah, and again, you underestimate Stade at your peril if you look at what they have budget-wise and the quality of players they have through their squad. But it's something that we're growing here as well. I think it's important we get a good performance on Friday night. Obviously, you want an outcome where you're winning, but it's foolhardy just to go out and set your stall out to win a game. You got to build every minute within the game, get an 80-minute performance to get that outcome, and in so doing, you set yourself up for the following week. And Stade at home's really exciting also.
Some of us were at Ravenhill when he beat the crap out of Stade Francais in the semi-final in '99.
That's we had to do it that way, to be honest. But
what a day that was, huh?
Were you actually there?
I was there.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
31st of January was it? Because it was a blazing sunny day in Ravenhill. We were praying for rain, a bit like today. But it's times have moved on.
Is that the last time you met them?
Yeah, it is.
Really?
It is.
Oh,
last time I'd have played against them. But the Ospreys played against them a couple of years ago, and you saw the threat that they were then. So it depends which Stade team turns up. For us, we want consistency in how we turn up. And going back to your first question, that's probably what we didn't deliver on Friday night.